All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X Zone 724-365 is www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Johnny Walker, and originally from the Southwest U.S. Johnny spent many years doing road work, both on and off stage. After basing himself in New York City in the late 80s, he worked as a professional sound designer in the live music scene and theater community while traveling abroad with various artists and projects. Johnny's travels and work experience led him to see and hear otherworldly things not many people get to experience. It's for that reason he wrote Echo Mysteries, EKKO Mysteries Trilogy. Now, Johnny has written songs for himself and for others for 25 years, racking up 2 Billboard songwriting citations. An accomplished musician and published songwriter, he became a published author in 2006. And joining me now from his home in the Great Apple, or the Big Apple, New York City, is my guest this hour, Johnny Walker. And Johnny, welcome to the X Zone.
Well, thank you, Mr. McConnell. It's an honor to be here. I'm such an admirer of your show.
Oh, thank you, Johnny. Listen, Johnny, tell me about your musical career before we get into the paranormal. I love music.
I know that about you, and I really think that's great. It's it's such a different world, the whole music thing. And mine started off when I was a kid playing violin. In the early years, like I guess 6th grade or whatever.
Right.
And just kept at it. I was the dorky kid in school with the high water pants and carrying the violin, and actually, I just really liked it. And I went on from there to start playing cello. And in high school, I started doing state competitions and traveling around and getting a real taste for this. And just have always had music in my life. It's just such a big part of my diet. I guess as anyone who loves music knows, it just complements everything you do, or you think it does anyway. You feel that way. It's like the companion that you take along, and so I incorporated that into, I went on the road with bands,
right,
and played quite a bit across the country, and then I started learning sound, and as I got older, I started making more money doing sound than I did playing. So, when you're young, money is a driving factor.
Well, that's right.
These days it's not. It sure is nice when it comes around, but it's not the be all. But when you're young, that's the decision maker, and I started doing much more sound, and that really took off. And for many years, I was a sound designer here in the city, and also across the country, traveling with singers and to little places, big places, Toronto Convention Center, to little places in Lexington, Kentucky. Mixing sound, doing sound, running tech.
Sure.
And, there's a common denominator in all these places, and that is that things go bump in the nightclub.
Things go bump in the nightclub?
There are things that go bump in the nightclub. Yes, there are.
Wow. So tell me about the Echo Mysteries Trilogy.
Echo is pretty much my recap of a lot of my experiences. There were things that just happened all the time Some places more than others, but there were just too many things. It just, at first you're just gonna, you really don't understand. I think I've always been sensitive to it. I think many people are without realizing it.
Right.
But when it comes around so often, you just got to stop and say, okay, all right, what's going on here? What is this? And I started keeping a log. I started writing these things down and just keeping memory of these things. And I knew there was a story in here somewhere, but I didn't want to make it another ghost hunters, ghost seekers, ghost type of spend an hour looking for a ghost and never get anywhere. I wanted to bring him to life right away and kind of explain the unexplainable in a
Sure.
adventurous way.
All right, Johnny, you and I have to take a commercial break. Please stand by. By the way, I have a lot of respect for sound designers and sound engineers. It's because of the great work that you and others like Mike Craig over here and a good friend of mine, Michael J. McCorley, here in Hamilton. You guys make us sound good. So thanks very much for the great work you do.
You got it. That's our job.
Exo Nation will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break with my special guest this hour, the one and only Johnny Walker, as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Give me 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Johnny Walker is our special guest this hour. Johnny's website is ekkkomysteries.com. That's ecomysteries.com. Things that go bump in the club. Johnny, tell me about it.
There's, I think some other people kind of agree with this, but when you take these nightclubs and you fill them with people every night and you've got this tremendous energy going on, and night after night you just, for a couple of hours, there's just this excitement, this energy, there's sound, which not to veer off of that too far, but I've always believed that music opens a channel to another place.
Yeah.
It just, it brings in something special. But you take all these energies every night and you fill the room and you empty it out, and you fill the room and you empty it out. And I just believe that there's things that linger, in that sense. And, compile that with a very old building, like some of the stuff I've seen, and mostly on the East Coast, because you've got a lot of older places there. And there's some really terrific old buildings, and I've seen things that just stopped me in my tracks. And I love it.
Give me an example of something that stopped you in your tracks.
I think this was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I was backstage. I was this is going to show my age here, but I was on a Harry Chapin tour, his last Cotton Patch Gospel, and you have these sets where there's little walls here and there, plywood walls, and people stand behind them and wait for their cues. And I was backstage waiting for my cue, and something in the catwalk caught my eye, and I looked up, and there was a man up there in overalls and a long white beard, just casually leaning on the frame of the catwalk, watching, looking down. He wasn't active, he wasn't happy, he wasn't sad, he was just watching. And I kind of wondered who it was, if, I didn't see anybody like that in the crew or that worked there, and he was kind of gray. He had a paleness to him that it just, I just stopped. I just froze. But at the same time, I was just fascinated. This is just awesome. This is so cool. I cannot believe I'm seeing this, and I'm lucky enough to see this. And he just watched, and honestly, I don't remember a whole lot after that. Maybe he took me somewhere, maybe he didn't, but being frozen in my tracks and watching this guy, just, I incorporated this guy into the books. just in a slight way, because he was just too cool. He was just way too cool, and I had to. That's an example, and that was a really old theater, and that's the kind of stuff you see in these old theaters. And a lot of these places have, if you're ever sitting in a theater and it's intermission or you're waiting for the show, if you look up at the gargoyles and the little rooms and the designs, there's rooms up there. There's crevices and walkways, and I explored every one of them I could. I went through them. I crawled. I crept. I just couldn't leave any stone unturned, and I just, that was part of the fun of going to all these places, was just disappearing for a minute, and I got in trouble too. But I'm still alive, and nobody got sued, so we're okay.
What was it about the old man on the catwalk that just grabbed you to the point where, you had to stop, you had to think, and he left such an impression with you that you put him in your book? What was that?
I think because he was so visual, but I got to tell you the rest of the story.
Okay.
He was so visual, he was so real that, from one minute to the next he was there and he was gone. But it turns out that night when I got back to my hotel room, I had got a phone call from my sister that my stepmom had died.
Oh, no.
So it was kind of, I don't know. It was pretty coincidental to me.
Mm-hmm.
Something, from the other side maybe was looking at me, reaching out to me, talking to me, I don't know, preparing me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was an impact, and I still remember it clear as day, as clear as anything. As I'm talking on the phone right now, I can remember it and see him. It just scorched me. It scorched my memory. It stayed with me, and I feel better for it. I feel lucky. I feel fortunate. I wish others were perceptive to this and understood just how cool this is.
So,
as opposed to being afraid.
Where has been the spookiest club or theater that you have ever gone into that you may say in your heart of hearts, I'm not going back there?
Oh, boy. A couple of those.
Really?
Oh, man. There were some that I just see, a lot of these places also, you learn them. If you work there night after night,
mm-hmm.
You'll learn them, and there's a lot of times you've got to walk around in them in the dark. And you learn the steps. It's like, 3 steps this way, turn, 7 steps down, 3, 7, 3. You learn this in the dark because you have to close places down. You're a lot of times you're the last one out. After everything's gone, you shut down the stage. So you learn your way around, and there is actually one time that just, I brought it home with me.
Really?
Long story short, yeah. Didn't mean to, didn't plan to, but I brought it home with me. And that one was just, that's a story in itself. There are other places where I learned not to look in the mirrors. You do not look in the mirrors.
Why not?
Just don't do that, because that's when you will see something. You will see something that you wouldn't see it standing beside you, but in the mirror you will see something. And I'm not saying it's clear as day, just like
mm-hmm.
Your best pal sitting there with a drink in his hand. There's something there. You can't really quite describe it. It is a haze. It is a figure. It is a semblance of a set of eyes, but there's something there. So I didn't look in the mirrors. I learned that pretty quick on. Don't look in the mirrors. And again, you're at these places late at night by yourself. A lot of times doing repairs till 6 a.m.
How much of it do you think that these are the impressions that are left behind of people who have had good experiences, bad experiences? After all, if you're working in a theater or a larger venue, there's a lot of feelings that are left behind and imprinted on the electromagnetic fiber of time and space.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, personally, I believe that it all comes down to what kind of person you are in your daily life. If you're a happy-go-lucky, really pleasant person, take everything with a grain of salt type of guy, then you're going to be that kind of spirit. And if you are the opposite, then you're going to be a hellraiser. You're going to be, you're going to enjoy scaring the bejiggers out of people. Whereas I think some spirits just like to come around.
Okay, so if a spirit is lingering in a theater, in a large venue, or even a bar that has a stage, why do you think they stay there instead of moving forward, going to the light?
I think it's their passion for the art, their passion for the sound and the music, and there were many times when I was working on sound and adjusting, setting frequencies, and I don't know. There's a process called ringing out the room, and it's pretty much the same as ringing out a water-soaked towel, but this is with frequencies. And you bring up the levels on stage, turn everything up really loud, and inch your sliders upward to where things start squealing. Then you bring them back down. Then you inch them up a little higher and bring them back down. And each time you inch it back up, you push frequencies out of the room. It's a way to clear the airwaves so that when people get on stage and make a lot of noise, there's a whole lot less feedback. It's a process that just really helps you and gives you a little peace of mind. Because as a sound man, a lot of times you're sitting on the edge of your chair watching people say, "Don't go over there. Don't go over there. Don't touch that." And it kind of gives you some peace of mind. In adjusting frequencies and setting EQs, there were times where I actually started playing with the knobs and turning them against each other and getting these sounds that I had never heard before. These vibrations and harmonies almost. It was like, it was like as if the air was singing. It was an a cappella song with harmonies coming from nowhere.
So let me ask you. Speaking about that, have you ever heard a ghost sing?
Well, that's kind of what I was sort of referring to. Like I wonder sometimes if there's an interjection there where something comes across and jumps into your sound. It really comes alive through these frequencies and sound manipulations, and that's really the basis of the book. Is the protagonist is a sound man, and he discovers how to bring ghosts around. And so while it's a little more adventurous and fun, there's really something to that, I believe, and I think others believe this also. But again, you're opening a door with frequencies and sound waves, and it's believed that all the way back to Stonehenge that these rocks were moved with sound waves. There's a lot of things in the past that people, say that sound waves are responsible for. I think they're much more powerful than many people give them credit for. It's a whole lot more than just plugging in a guitar and getting a loud sound.
All right, stand by, Johnny. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Johnny Walker's our guest. He's the author of a trilogy. And the name of the trilogy is, are you ready for this? Eco Mysteries Trilogy. That's EKKO Mysteries Trilogy. And Johnny's website is www.ecomysteries.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And don't forget, X-Zone Nation, we're just a week away from the December issue of the X-Chronicles newspaper being available online, in digital format, and print. I'll be back. Don't go away. Johnny Walker's our special guest this hour, Exo Nation, ecomysteries.com. And I have to ask you this. What was it like working with Harry Chapin?
Well, actually, I did not work with him. It was his last work. It was just after he died. I worked with his brother.
Oh, I see.
And the family. So I did not have that honor. I did have the pleasure of doing his last work, but unfortunately, no. Wish I could say I did. But that tour alone was an incredible tour. I don't think there was a stone unturned on that tour, and it's just so well received. People were just nice everywhere we went. It was just nice.
What other artists? What other artists have you worked with that we might know?
Well, gosh, quite a few. I was lucky enough to do a gig for Carole King.
Wow.
Who, I got to tell you, is about the most pleasant, sweetest, nicest person I've ever run across.
Right.
In fact, during her show, there was a time she was very tired, and she came to me and said, "Johnny, please keep the lights down. Just, she was exhausted. She's touring and doing," and I said, "You got it." And so, during the show, I've got her a little low, and things are, of course, doing great, but people just stormed to me, agents and managers and club people, and everybody just was, bring her up, we kept bringing her up, and this one I had to take a hit. I just had to take a hit for Carole because she asked me, and, if there's any time you have to take a hit, it's for someone like Carole King. I kept it low. People yelled at me. They didn't call me back. That's life. But I can't put a price on that. It was an honor to work with such a legend. There was a time I stood 4 feet away from Natalie Cole. She sung Unforgettable at a birthday party.
Unbelievable.
I'm sorry. There was some great stuff. Yeah. I'm a very fortunate man, and sound took me there.
So what was the final factor that made you, Johnny Walker, say, you know what, I'm going to take this notebook of mine and I'm going to turn it into a trilogy?
Well, first of all, I had to get the story out of my head. I had to get some of the stuff out of my head. And I'd been toying with the idea forever. I didn't know exactly how to approach this. My first editor said, don't end this. I had written a book, and she said, don't end this. This is fun. This is just really fun. You've got a city, and you've got adventure, and you've got ghosts, and you've got sound, and you just keep it going for a while. So, that created more work, but it also created a really fun adventure. And, of course, you've got to have an end. You've got to have a resolution. So I made it as fantastical as I could, but what I really enjoyed was there's a version of the Echo Mysteries that we brought to life in a multimedia format. Now, I noticed the iPad books were doing videos and speeches on knee surgeries and medical stuff. So I thought this would be really cool to replace this with a rock band, and bring these ghostly stories to life with music from a fictional band. And so we jumped in the studio and wrote songs for this and brought this band to life in the multimedia books. We did a CD, and the band is called Nathan Juju, a fictional band that this protagonist CJ has got a great job with, and bringing all this together was just a blast. But the band was kind of my way of introducing. You know how you have somebody that you want to introduce them to the paranormal, you want them to believe, but you can't just hit them over the head. You can't just say, sit down, here's how it is, because they're not going to buy it. So the band was my way of slowly introducing these paranormal adventures, so that by the end of the story, this lead singer's on board. He's just seen enough. Kind of like all of us, I guess. When you've seen enough, you've seen enough. Like, okay, I get it. Which kind of takes me back to, I had mentioned earlier that I'd taken a ghost home with me.
Yes.
That's pretty much when I had said, okay, enough. I was working in this club, and I had shut everything down, And I decided to play piano. I just wanted to sit and play piano for a while and practice. I'm no John Boswell. I'm just playing around. I'm just, So I'm going through my dark club, and I feel something. I just feel somebody with me. And I get up on stage, and of course the place is closed down. There's one light, very, very, very dimly lit, just enough for me to see the piano and sit there. And so I'm playing, tickling the ivories, doing whatever, and I feel something on the back of my neck. And I just kind of stopped, and I kept telling myself, it's not here to hurt you. It is not here to hurt you. Keep playing. So I kept playing, and as I played, it got more and more intense. These whatever it was on the back of my neck, just, it was almost like a finger was stroking the back of my neck and kind of moving with me musically. It was just phenomenal, and the more I got into it, the more I got lost in it. As opposed to running like a scared little girl, I just embraced it, and that was the first time I just kind of said, okay, enough, what is this? And I dealt with it, and I remember leaving. I remember everything being very clear, and then for about a week at home, things were just strange. Strange things happened. I mean, my phone would ring. I was laying in bed, my phone rang, and it rang, and it rang, and I'm just laying there saying, the phone, let the machine get it. And this was when, again, aging myself here, but when answering machines picked up for you. And I'm just laying there going, get it, but the machine wouldn't turn on. The phone kept ringing, and I mean, it rang 85, 95, 107, 425, 855,000 times. It just rang and rang and rang. Phone, machine never picked up. I woke in the middle of the night one night. Someone yelled, "Johnny!" and a can fell in the kitchen and bounced across the floor. I had a very large fish, a South African tilapia. It was about 10 inches long in a huge 110-gallon tank. His name is Dog. Awesome, beautiful fish that interacted with you. Dog to fish, beautiful. People love Dog.
Sit, bark, roll over,
And
play dead.
Actually, we used to put a wooden spoon in there, and it would chase the wooden spoon, and you could pat it on the head and twirl it in circles. Wow. And this fish was so cool. Well, it's got eyes as big as we do. At some point, an animal starts interacting with you. A dog was going nuts for like a week. It was just fluttering. It was just going crazy. I thought it was sick. I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
So that's what I mean by I think I brought it home, because things just got really weird for a week or two. Huh. And that was my, okay, enough. There is no questioning this. There is no questioning that something is going on, that you can connect, that this whole realm that you enter doesn't have to be something that makes you sit in a corner and shake with fear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at first, that's exactly your first reaction. You just want to But, enough's enough, and it's like, okay, am I going to step up to the plate, or am I going to, hide?
Sure.
And I think by stepping up to the plate, I just helped the doors open up. And fortunately, being in the music and artists, I think I was around some of the nicer spirits. Thank goodness, that's a good thing.
So tell me, Johnny, with all the experiences that you've had at venues and the other places where you've done sound, have you shared any of these experiences with others that you work with, or have you and someone else, or maybe a couple of your friends, have they seen something strange, weird, bizarre that only you guys saw?
Some people do want to talk about it. A lot of people do not. They are they just shy away from it. They don't want to talk about it. But I'll tell you who does, and I'll tell you who sees more than anybody, and that is the porters in these clubs. The porters, when they come in the morning, there were times they crept around the wall. I'd be on a ladder in the ceiling working on some wires, and they would just creep around the wall and just sigh like, it's you. Okay, because they see it. A lot of clubs, I think I've written this down in some places, some clubs embrace them. Most people really kind of shy away from it and run. But in these clubs in the series, I think there's New Orleans, Savannah, Charleston, Richmond, and Detroit. The whole series takes place within like 12 days. Every club has their unique spirits, and I think it's that way in many clubs. There's people know, but they may name it Sam. Who knows? But people know. They know. They may turn the other way, but they know.
Tell me, Johnny.
Talking about it is a whole different thing.
Tell me, Johnny, why do you think that some people have the ability to see and hear certain things and others, no way?
I think it's your ability to feel. How compassionate are you? Are you, and then I'm not trying to say that people that don't feel this are not compassionate people.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. But some people really do want to look around the corner. They want to turn over every rock and along the same lines, when they feel something, as opposed to turning away and shying and shutting down, they open up to it. I think it's there for all of us. I think every one of us could tune into this if we really were so inclined. I think that's the real key is that you have to be receptive. You have to want to be receptive. And I'm a big believer in the key word want. If you want to do something, you will. People always say, I wanted to go, I wanted to do this, I really wanted to do that. But if you really wanted to do it, you would have done it. Want is your driving factor. What you want to do, you will do.
So when it comes to the paranormal, we've talked about ghosts, we've talked about unseen spirits. What other aspects? For example, I'm sure you must have done a lot of traveling in your younger days, going from venue to venue, and if so, did you see anything in the skies that you just couldn't explain, like a UFO or extraterrestrials?
Yeah. You betcha. There were, when you're out on the road late at night, and people don't understand. Right now, between Montana and Idaho, there's a band traveling. There is in Northern California, there are people traveling. Everybody's traveling in the arts. There's so much behind the scenes, and you travel late at night, all night long. I used to love to travel at night because you kind of drive all night. In the morning, it's a new day, and you wake in your destination. But absolutely, there are things in the sky that you don't know what to call it. You see it, and you make note of it. Mm-hmm. I've pulled over before and looked, and it's you think, well, that's a box in the sky. Well, no, it's not a box. It's a tripod. You can't really. Nothing has actually come to me and quote unquote landed over me, so I've never been that close, but I have seen things in the sky. Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind.
Do you find that even though you're not going to the clubs, you're not doing the venues anymore, that spirits that you may have encountered while you were working in sound design and as a sound engineer come to visit you still?
They do. They absolutely do. I have had some just absolutely great dreams about some of these things. There's one girl that I used in the series that I named Clarice, and she has often come to me in dreams, and usually in a sense of asking me the next move. What are we doing next? What are we doing? She's enjoying this. Where are we going? What's next? And those aren't her exact words. In fact, I don't really know her exact words, but those are her looks. Those are her. That's what I'm picking up from her and her vibes. She's asking me, "What are we doing? This is cool. What do we got?" Wow. So yeah, I've definitely had dreams about them.
Right.
They're a part of my life. Once this stuff gets into your veins, it doesn't just really go away. part of it stays with you. And again, I feel very fortunate for that.
Tell me, Johnny, how long did it take you to take your notes and transpose them into books?
I'd say we're going on 8 years.
My goodness.
Yeah. The last 4 being so serious. I mean, in my cave, nonstop, writing, hiring editors, getting help, just really trying to turn this into a project as opposed to just a bunch of mumbling words. Just, sculpt it and turn it into something fun that people will enjoy. And again, a way of explaining the unexplainable in an adventure series that involves a whole lot of aspects and spirits that come to life and interact and, just...
kind of jump off the pages at you, yeah. All right, Johnny, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Exonation, Johnny Walker's our special guest. His website is eccomysteries.com. That's www.ekkomysteries.com. And Johnny and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Johnny Walker is my guest. He is the author of Eco Mysteries Trilogy. The website is www.ekkomysteries.com. First of all, Johnny, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been a great pleasure talking to you and sharing the exciting experiences that you've had while working in the entertainment industry. Johnny, what message would you like to leave with readers after they've completed reading your trilogy?
Wow. That you enjoyed this adventure, and that you are, open to anything that may come your way,
right,
as opposed to running, and, some of these adventures are a little hair-raising, but some of them are not. It's, that's just like life. Some things are smooth and some things are not. But, that you would just open your mind and accept that many things are possible.
Mm-hmm.
We see the surface. We see just what's in front of us sometimes when there's really a whole lot behind the scenes, and there's just life's been going on for thousands of years, and in my short little span, I hope to experience as much of it as I can, and that means being open, and I love being around others who are open, who we can have these dynamic conversations about things that other people would just walk away from because it's not cool, and don't worry about being cool. Cool is, be who you are, accept who you are, love, what you love, because that, that's it. That's your driving factor. It feeds your soul. So I hope they enjoy these, and I hope they enjoy the music and the whole concept of this crazy sound man who gets in way over his head.
Hey, let me ask you, what words of wisdom do you have for up-and-coming authors who may be listening tonight?
Don't stop. Don't stop. Everybody's going to laugh at you. Everybody's going to mock you. Everybody's going to, say something, but others will support you. And if you truly believe in what you're doing, don't stop. Just don't let anybody discourage you. Just keep going. Now, if you're living in some kind of impaired world where you're writing about Oreo cookies and there's 500 pages that say, I love Oreo cookies, you're not going to, you got to sometimes face reality. But with your project, don't stop. and listen to others, and for you, for example, I love going to iTunes and listening to your broadcasts.
Oh,
I love them. And I don't know if many people know they're there. They should, but there's so many things that they should study and read and look at, and don't be so closed-minded. Open your mind, open your thoughts, work hard. I mean, the last 4 years, it's been 15 hours a day minimum.
Yeah.
This is a really big project with the whole band recordings. I mean, I got Hallie DeVestern and some terrific people to help me out and do vocals. These are, it's an actual CD. So on top of 3 books, we've done a CD and snippets, and combining all this with editors and artists. And don't give up. Don't give up, no matter how crazy it gets. Sometimes I live in my cave and I watch the seasons change out the window.
I know that feeling. Listen, Johnny.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is, and hopefully it's not an oncoming train.
I love that phrase. I love it. Thank you for saying that.
Hey, Johnny, you and I have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to the next time you join us back here in the X Zone. Until then, be well, my friend.
Right back to you.
Exo Nation, Johnny Walker has been our guest this hour. www.ekomysteries.com. That's EKKOMysteries.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.